What's up, guys? Cody here, and that's 1025 rundown. Um, it's been a while since I've done the patch rundown, but I'm doing a lot of coaching lately, so I kind of need to keep on top of what's going on in the game in general. And tell my team and whatnot. So I decided, let's do a patch rundown. So we got Rell coming out. Um, my thoughts on Rell is that he's gonna be very tanky. I've looked at the numbers, and the damage numbers are similar to what you'd find on like Alistar. But overall, I'm not too impressed by it. I think that she's going to be um a little bit weaker than what like Alistar is. I think. I definitely think she's gonna be more like a B tier support. She is very tanky, but she has pretty much no way to get on top of high range champions. And her ability to take stats away from the opponents is a really cool concept, but it doesn't really mean much for bot lane. Outside of the fact that your ADC can now deal more damage when you get on top of something, which I guess is something. But otherwise than that, she provides good CC and whatnot. But like I said, she's probably like more of a B tier support. In my opinion, she's weaker than Alistar. I think that Alistar has a much cleaner engage. The only thing that Rell provides is probably a little bit more damage. And I guess more CC if she can stay like more AoE CC is what I should say. More reliable AoE CC in terms of laning phase and whatnot. I think that you should probably just always play Alistar or Leona over her. Just especially just because those champions can deal with the high range champions in the game that are kind of running around right now. Um, so yeah, that's my main takeaway on that. I think overall, Rell is more or less balanced outside of being kind of tanky. Amumu nerfs, it's whatever. Like, it's not really gonna change anything outside of like this. That's kind of substantial, but and then the stun duration here, that's pretty substantial. Losing a half second on the stun, kind of sucks. There's a big line of Anivia changes. The main takeaway here is that like Q is faster, and your damage on your Q is more so on the detonation than the first part of it. Her E deals more damage now, and the ult has a lower cooldown as you max it, but less base damage, and the cost has been changed up to kind of reflect that as well. So overall, it's probably a buff for Anivia, just mostly just because the increase to the E damage and the increase to the Q missile speed. Um, I don't know if this is really going to change much. I think Anivia does well into assassins, and there are quite a bit of assassins right now running around in mid lane. So maybe she'll be good. I don't know. I don't play mid that much. You'd have to more so ask Anivia mains. But this looks like a pretty substantial buff, at least in terms of her E, since this is her main damage output. So yeah, Annie gets a nerf. Whatever. I care. I didn't really think she was. Echo Jungle gets a buff. That's a little scary. Yeah, that's kind of scary. This might be a pretty big difference. So keep an eye on that because Fizz nerf. Yeah, that's kind of whatever. It's not really going to change much. All of these changes aren't going to really do much to the meta. I guess it gets a buff. Whatever. Aurelia got a buff. That's scary, but yeah. It's mostly scary because Divine Sunder is a thing, and I know that did not get nerfed for some reason, even though Divine Sunder is by far the best item in the game for those that can use it properly. So that's kind of scary that she's getting buff. But yeah. Iron buff, I don't know. I'm not really so thrilled about the Daisy attack speed though. Ooh, that's a little good. 1 second off the E. It's like the Daisy thing is pretty cool. Otherwise, yeah, he's just in a rough spot. Mostly just like they say like Athene's is gone and it's kind of. So yeah, I don't. Once again, don't really think that changes much. Jin gets a nerf to his Q. Yeah, it's just like he's still gonna be good. So Arthas buff, meh. Hail nerf, meh. Pain nerf, probably meh because they didn't do anything to Gore Drinker. I mean, like this his Q getting 1 second extra is a big deal with 10 less damage just because he's using that the most. But overall, meh. Lee Sin buff could be scary, but we'll see. Lulu got buffed, regardless of what they want to say here. Lulu did get buffed. It's like when you first read it, it's like 10 less damage sucks, but your second bolt deals more damage now. Bolts no longer have pass through fall off damage. They know what that means outside of for bolts might have done less damage if they went through minions. I didn't even know was a thing. But they now deal less damage to minions, so a nerf to lane Lulu. But only people that were doing that were people that were kind of funneling anyways, so overall this is a buff to Lulu, which I didn't really think was needed. Mordekaiser got a buff, which is kind of scary. Morgana got a nerf. I guess she was a problem, but I didn't really see anybody complaining about her in my games. Okay. Assist buff, that's irrelevant. Lily buff, probably doesn't mean anything. Pantheon got a lot of changes here. The main thing is you get max stacks when you back. Your Q costs less mana now, but your empowered Q no longer slows. Your W, your stun, deals more damage now. A lot more damage now, which is a really big deal. Honestly, all this stuff is buffs for support more than anything. Outside of this, E no longer blocks turret shots. This is a big deal for support Pantheon. However, they've taken that away and they've given him the empowered E now makes it so that he gets extra move speed for 1.5 seconds after he uses, which is pretty cool, I think. The E no longer blocking turret shots, I think, is a really good change that makes him much more balanceable because it's very toxic. As somebody that also played a lot of Pantheon support even before it became meta, it's very toxic to run up and just dive somebody into turret and take 0 damage. Also, you get reduced the slow is less now, which is great. And the ult got buffed too. Pantheon gains armor penetration. I think that's just a passive on it, so that's cool. And the spear that lands when Pantheon ults now slows, which is interesting. So it means that you can click on top of somebody because the spear comes out pretty fast. The Grand Indicator now appears for Pantheon and all ads at the start of the channel. That's just a visual quality of life thing. That's whatever. But that's interesting. This says it now slows for 50%, but it doesn't say the duration of the slow, which is interesting. But this is pretty much saying that Pantheon can now click on top of somebody to ult potentially. Which I don't really know if that means too much because once again they don't say the duration of the slow here. So, yeah. Overall, I don't think this really changes Pantheon's place in the meta too much. I think if anything, this makes him stronger outside of the fact that he can't dive turrets anymore, so your opponents can send a turret pretty safely now, but at the cost of losing minions, which, once again, I think that means that he's balanced to a degree. Samira can now only knock up champions that are already knocked up, which is a huge nerf. And she still can dash into and deal the extra damage or whatever with the passive. But yeah, that's a pretty big nerf. So you really want to pair her with Alistar if you want to make use of it in laning phase. However, I've said this before, Samira really needs someone to get her through the laning phase properly because her laning phase is actually really weak. So yeah. The lifesteal effectiveness on her Q and R go down, which just means that she's just a kill when she uses ult pretty much. Whatever. Seraphine's getting buffed. I already said in my support rundown, in my support tier list from last patch, that Seraphine was A tier, really S tier in my heart, because if you had a ADC that wasn't brain dead, you won laning phase so hard it wasn't even funny. The only times that she would lose laning phase was when the enemy picked a hard engage support, particularly Pike. Anything that could hard engage early, that could abuse you before you got to poke a lot. Just shut down your laning phase essentially. So yeah, Seraphine has 10 more health per level than what she did before, and her self shield is 50% stronger, which is a little ridiculous. So yeah, you just essentially think of it this way: if Seraphine double cast her W, she now has tripled the shield on herself instead of double the shield. That's how you gotta view it, which is just insane. So yeah, they're making out like this is a buff to mid. She's never gonna be viable mid right now unless she's ridiculously overtuned. For the most part, at least. Like, her main reason, right, she's not good mid laner, is that she's a utility mage. That doesn't output damage, really. Outside of early game base damage. But yeah, overall, this is just, oh my god. She's more reason for me to just say that she's S tier. Shyvana doesn't have any meaningful changes, because they're all for ARAM and Nexus Blitz. A buff to Talia jungle doesn't matter pretty much. I want to say doesn't matter pretty much. It might. Talia jungle's been a nuisance in the past, so I guess keep an eye on it, but don't really think too much of it, I think. They keep buffing Twitch. I don't think it's gonna mean anything. I think Twitch's place in the meta stays the same pretty much. AP Twitch, though, kinda hurts right now, so AP Twitch is kind of performing better than AD Twitch in my opinion. To a degree. Like, AD Twitch, if you pop off, you pop off. But AP Twitch, I kind of feel like you can, like, if you don't pop off, it doesn't matter. Yasuo and Yone get extra attack speed. Whatever. Rengar buffs in the jungle. Warwick buffs in the jungle. Pretty much. It's a buff to his damage in general overall as well. Which is scary, but overall, I don't think it's going to mean too much. Talon got a buff. Interesting. Wukong Jungle got a buff. Tax Collector no longer executes minion. Whatever. I honestly assumed that it only worked on enemy champions to begin with. I say Tax Collector, by the way, I mean the Collector. Mana no longer works for mages. However, a lot of mages that were building more mana shouldn't have been building more mana because there were better options than it. So Yeah, for the most part, this actually doesn't change anything for the people that weren't brain dead and actually could do math. But this changes stuff for some people. Rageblade, that's whatever. Zeke's gets nerfed. Don't like this is a nerf, guys. This is a nerf. Extra damage and increased mark duration doesn't mean anything when it already doesn't function properly right now. Unless it's listed down here in the bug fixes. Let me see. Nope, it's not listed in the bug fixes. Yeah, so unless it could just be listed under immobilized. Immobilized does not function as you would assume it would be. Certain I know for Thresh, only one thing in his kit procs the immobilize. Even though you would think that his Q and his E both proc it, they do not. I think it's only the first portion of his E procs it, or his Q procs it. It's very bad. It does not immobilize. Does not function as you would think it would function. Blitzcrank does not actually proc Zeke's properly. It is very bad. I think knockups don't count as immobilize or something like that. For the people that can actually use this, essentially anybody with a root or a stun, those are the only things that I know properly count as immobilize. Those people, this is a buff, kind of, but I said this before. Zeke's, I think I said this. Zeke's really wants to be built when you have an on-hit ADC. Or a mage that can a machine gun mage like Cassio. But overall, it's a bad item, especially because it doesn't work properly. It doesn't work as you would think. Secret's Arm Guard, whatever. That's whatever. The support items overall cost less. Chemtech Purifier not costing less is an odd decision. It's actually odd decision for Chemtech Purifier not to cost less, because now it costs as much as all the other items when it was meant to be a cheap Grievous Wounds item for supports, and now technically it's not cheaper compared to other items, but whatever. So a lot of stuff got cheaper. I didn't really have a problem with the cost of the support items. I felt like they were in a good spot. So overall, this is going to be a buff to mainly enchanters, but also we're going to see Locket and Shirelia's is on too. So technically, it's a buff to all supports. But yeah, the build path for Ardent and Staff of Flowing Water is now better. It doesn't require a Blasting Wand. That part was annoying, but I once again didn't care about it. But it's now easier to build it. Essentially, you don't have to save up all that money to get a Blasting Wand. So that's cool. However, what's not cool is these changes here. Hero Mandate got changed so that it wasn't an item that you could use in solo lanes anymore. Realistic. So the cost for it goes down by 200. The cost for all the mixes went down by 200, which I just think is insane. Because I thought they were in a good spot already. I was never really in a spot where I backed and I was like, man, I wish I had another 200 gold because I'm 200 short of my mythic. That never really happened for me. I just played the game properly. So yeah. So Imperial Mandate, the initial damage is lowered, but the subsequent damage is increased. Overall, this is a buff to the item for support, which is insane to think, because it was somewhat of a problem compared to Moonstone Renewer, because Moonstone Renewer didn't really work properly to begin with, and they completely changed up how Moonstone Renewer worked when they did the quote-unquote bug fix, which did more than just what the bug fix said. But I'll get into that in a second. But Imperial Mandate does more damage now. And you're going to pretty much always be getting this item over Moonstone Renewer, especially because Moonstone Renewer got nerfed. Yep, you heard it right. It got nerfed. 200 gold less like all the other items, but the healing is increased, but they've reduced the multiplier on the healing. Why? Before, the healing would be increased 12.5% per second up to 50% max, instead of up to 100%. Now, it doesn't really take that much of a mathematician to figure out 100% is better than 50%. And it doesn't really take a mathematician to figure out that a 10 point increase does not compensate for losing out on 50% bonus, because you would immediately stack up to the 100% after one ability. It's literally 4 seconds in combat that you get this, and you can only get the passive from this every 2 seconds. So what happened is you would use one ability, it would stack all the way up to the 4 seconds, and then you would use another one. Which, let's just say, we're healing for 60. That would be 120. Now, instead, it's going to go from 70 to an extra 50% is going to be 105. So we've just lost out on 15% HP. Every cast from now on, you lose out on an extra 15 HP for each time. And that gets worse as you get up in the levels. So overall, Moonstone Renewer got nerfed. It's just more reason to buy Imperial Mandate over Moonstone Renewer. Moonstone Renewer is still an okay item. But don't get the item if there's heavy bursts from the enemy. Only get the item if the fights are going to be longish. But yeah, just try to stick to Imperial Mandate. Block it. The shield gets lowered because the cost is lowered. That kind of sucks because, once again, Imperial Mandate didn't get nerfed. Oh, I should say it got nerfed if you don't proc the second portion of the damage, but as a support, you're probably proccing the second portion of the damage. But yeah, losing the shield amount kind of sucks because Locket already kind of felt somewhat bad, where its only saving grace was the shield more than anything. But really, ooh. And Shirelia's, no one really buys this item just because it's very hard to use effectively. But the nerf to it is less impactful because it's a nerf of 15 damage per ally you're affecting. Which is worth the 200 gold decrease. In general, for the ADC items, crit items are cheaper overall. And Gale Force got a buff, thank God. 90 seconds on Gale Force felt really sad. The fact that it got buffed is very, very nice. So, much better item now. Much more worth getting now. Because before, there was pretty much no reason to get this item over the other items just because this 90-second cooldown was so insane. But yeah, Rapid Fire, Phantom Dancer, 200 gold less, Mortal Reminder, 200 gold less, and gives more AD. Why? Yeah, Mercurial Scimitar gives more AD at 100. Yeah, that's whatever. Lord Dominic's more AD. Kind of helps the meta ADCs more than anything, but eh. And they change up Infinity Edge so that you have to build crit to get the bonus out of it. Pretty much this change is solidifying Infinity Edge as a third item, because to get the bonus you have to have 60% crit chance, and to get that 60% crit chance you have to build 3 other AD items. It's making it so that you can't really build this item on the champions that are building Eclipse right now without getting another item in addition to what you're already building. So that's interesting. I think these changes pretty much makes it so that Jinx and Tristana are a lot better. Tristana is already kind of in a good spot right now. And Jinx is hovering around being good. Jinx is always hovering around being like a really good ADC. So, yeah, I think the Jinx and Tristana kind of got buffed really well by this, and I think other ADCs get buffed from this, but overall, I think they're not going to be meta just because they just can't keep up with it. Ludens loses some magic pen and gains some ability haste. That more or less sucks, to be honest. Ability haste, it's like it's shifting the power, but you really got Ludens for the magic pen. And Everfrost, nobody builds this item. Nobody builds this item, and it feels bad because Glacial Augment is kind of bad outside of everyone aside from Senna right now. And I guess there's like a few fringe scenarios where you can take Glacial Augment, but realistically, there's no Glacial Augment builds anymore because we got rid of Twin Shadows plus GLP. And Everfrost is just not a good replacement for those builds. So yeah, Everfrost getting any buffs is great, but it's not really going to change the state of the item. Dustblade finally doesn't work off of ranged champions for the slow. I don't know why it ever went back to working off of ranged champions for the slow. Still a good item though. Doesn't like just you can't build it like you just yeah. It doesn't really change anything. Just not getting the slow off of ranged. So this it doesn't change much at all. Eclipse got nerfed again for ranged champions. I hate to say it, but this doesn't like it's substantial because you're probably losing out about 80 to 150. I don't know the exact numbers. So it's substantial, but I think that the champions that are buying this are going to keep buying this. Unless all of a sudden Jin wants to start building crit again, but bombing nerf, that's probably great. This only sucks for like jungle, I feel like, because in jungle it's kind of difficult to get bombed, in my opinion. It's difficult to hit 1,000 gold, personally. So hitting 1,100 is gonna feel even worse. That's more of a personal opinion than anything, but I understand why the nerf's coming in. Sunfire losing 100 health is interesting. But yeah, Crossfire Gauntlet. Honestly, I don't really see much people building this, but sure, I guess it needs nerf. Nobody builds this item, so I don't know why it's really getting nerfed. This item feels really bad. It's not a good replacement for Righteous, in my opinion. So, pretty much it. I like the rank change here. For banking games, which is really nice. I like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Because I don't think there's anything about immobilize in. Nope, there's nothing about knockups counting as immobilized. Yep. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, all of these skins look so good. If anyone out there wants to get me Elderwood Rakan and Xayah, please do, and please package in those chromas. Because that just looks so good. Those skins are so good in my opinion. Like, I just love the look of that. But anyways, for the most part, meta's not going to change that much. Rell will be a decent support, but Leona and Alistar I think are better options. Hero Mandate is once again the top tier support item for enchanters. Just don't buy Moonstone Renewer unless it's really, really good to get it. And yeah, keep an eye on Jinx and Tristana. And I don't really know if the... Oh, by the way, Seraphine. Yeah, Seraphine super strong now, by the way. already was super strong. But yeah, and Pantheon is probably better, but maybe not. The move speed nerf kind of sucks, but over. And keep an eye on Anivia, maybe. No, better now. So I don't know. But yeah, thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, remember to like and subscribe. I stream on Twitch most nights. I think I don't know. It's kind of random. It'll just be nighttime. And if I'm there, stop by, say hi. And yeah, and if I'm in a good mood, I might offer you some free coaching. If I'm in a good mood. But I'll always answer questions in chat and whatnot, yada yada yada. And yeah. Well, I'll catch you guys later.